Bonjour à toutes et tous, vous écoutez First Print, votre podcast comics préféré pour un nouveau rendez-vous de notre format Super Friends. C'est dans cette émission que l'on va à la rencontre des personnes qui font vivre la pop culture et la culture comics par leur travail. Et on a le plaisir de recevoir une nouvelle fois dans notre podcast le grand Charlie Adlard, qui était en tournée de dédicaces en France et qu'on n'a pas pu rencontrer sur place puisque son emploi du temps était très chargé, mais il nous fait la gentillesse et l'honneur de nous accorder cette interview à distance. Et donc on va pouvoir parler un petit peu de ses derniers projets et notamment de Hérétique, un album qui vient tout juste de sortir aux éditions Delcourt. Le générique se lance puis on se retrouve en anglais avec Charlie. So hello, Charlie Adlard. It's really nice to have you back in our podcast. How are you?
I'm good, thank you, Arno. You okay?
I'm okay also. It's great to start 2026 with a new book from you and Robbie, because it's not the first time that you two collaborated together.
No, it's not. I mean, I'd say probably myself and Robbie. Over the years, we've probably done more things together than any other writer. I mean, obviously with Robert Kirkman, I worked more consistently for a longer period of time. But yeah, I've known Robbie since the early 90s. And yeah, our first collaboration was White Death, La Mort Blanche, way back in, I think, 94, 95, something like that. And it was always intended on being geared more towards BD as opposed to the American market. And then we collaborated a lot on stuff that Robbie had written for 2000 AD, namely Nikolai Dante. We did a couple of superhero things together very briefly and finally culminated a few years ago in Hérétique.
Because if I looked back at White Death, and in the foreword of that book, you said that really White Death was maybe the project that changed everything for you in terms of perspective of what you were willing to do in the comics industry. So I guess it was really precious also to keep the relationship you had with Robbie and still work with him, maybe just for being thankful to that first project you did like 30 years ago. I don't know.
Well, I mean, I think Robbie and I share a very similar tastes in how we want to see our stories portrayed more than anybody else I work with. We do agree very much on how a story should feel, how a story should look, etc., etc. So yeah, and again, Robbie was the perfect collaborator initially on White Death, just because it was very BD friendly, as simple as that, because Robbie writes in that kind of manner.
So can you tell us a little bit more about the origins of this project, Hérétique? Because if I recall, you've been working on that for quite a few years, because when I searched, when it was announced last year or in 2024 by Image, I noticed that you were already speaking about it like in 2019. So can you tell us about how long you've been doing that?
Yeah, well, basically Hérétique was the project that I wanted to do straight after finishing The Walking Dead. What I didn't want was to finish The Walking Dead. I mean, let's preface it by the fact that obviously with The Walking Dead, you know, the end of it was a complete surprise to the industry. So we couldn't tell anyone of the end. So, of course, that put me in a slightly weird position that I couldn't map out my career after it, because obviously I couldn't tell anyone. But having said that, Robbie was one of the very, very few people that did know that we were going to finish it, because I wanted to get on and do our project together. And I think one of the reasons I also wanted to work with Robbie again on something a bit more, you know, for want of a better word, chunky, was because he'd moved to Shrewsbury, where I live. So it seemed inevitable, as I said to him, that you can't live just down the road and we can't work together. So, and then I obviously, probably about a year or so before we finished The Walking Dead, I did tell him, and obviously told him not to tell anyone, that we were finishing the book, and why don't we plan something for when I finish. So that was the basic origins of why we started when we did. And originally we were going to do, it sounds weird saying it now because it's the polar opposite to what we finished up doing. We were going to do a contemporary kind of, drug trafficking story set on the Mexican border, US-Mexican border. And we sort of went a bit down that path thinking about what we were going to do. But then Robbie just one day just kind of turned around and said, there's too much of this stuff in media, especially in television. And he didn't feel like what we were planning was original enough that it was going to sort of stand, apart from everything else. So he did a complete U-turn and basically showed me Hérétique. And I was completely taken by that anyway. And of course, the really weird thing about Hérétique was when we finished White Death all those years ago, Robbie sent me 2 or 3 proposals for something we might do together after that. One of them, and I didn't realize this until I was looking back through some of my old artwork, was in fact Hérétique. I don't think it was called Hérétique at the time, but it basically featured the same characters that are in Hérétique. And I did 1 page of artwork for it to sort of try and sell it as a concept. Obviously completely different now, and it's, and they were, sort of, it was more black and white ink work as opposed to what you see in front of you now. But so the actual gestation of it has been with Robbie since kind of the mid-90s.
And it's quite interesting to see that it came out last year, whereas between the end of The Walking Dead and that release, you got several other releases like Altamont that we spoke about the last time we spoke together, but also Damn Then All, the series you did with Cy Spurrier. So I was wondering also, do you manage to work on different projects at the same time, or how can we as readers can have a look at the chronology of how you draw these projects?
Well, I think as anyone knows, just because you work on a project, at this point of time in your studio, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be the one that comes out before the next one you work on. Hérétique was done pretty much, started at the tail end of 2019 and worked on through 2020. So obviously there wasn't much else to work on back in 2020, as you can imagine. So it was the pandemic comic. And we did actually do it, as we say in the UK, on spec, which means we did it without a publisher in mind. We just started working on it. So it wasn't until I'd finished it that we thought we'd take it around a few publishers. And I always had an image in mind straight off from the bat, because I've got a great image with the image. I've got a great relationship with Image, and I've been told in no uncertain terms anything I kind of want to do with them, they'll be up for it. So I was going to take it there, but Robbie wanted to try other places, which was fine. So it was kind of a process of just me letting Robbie do what he wanted to do with it first. I wouldn't say get nowhere fast, but things were very slow in the uptake from various other publishers. So after a while, we just sort of sent it to Image, and got it in and there. And then Robbie also, in the time in between, him writing Hérétique and it sort of getting in at Image, he'd started working on his first book, non-comics book. So he got busy with that. So things were delayed again because Robbie was busy with that, and there were certain things we couldn't do because Robbie needed to approve things, and et cetera, et cetera. So it was just it's gestation, albeit smooth. Well, no, I won't say it wasn't smooth, but in terms of it was only bumpy because of our own kind of just schedules and things like that. We certainly didn't, fall out over it or anything like that. We had, an issue with a letterer that he had personal issues, so we got it all, kind of a bit lettered, and then we had to abandon that because they couldn't carry on. So we had to go back and find another letterer. So there were various things like this which did delay the process. Also, it was originally going to be coloured, and I sort of talked to some folks about colouring it. They sent in samples. As good as it wasn't really working with the artwork because I'd obviously put so much textural kind of grey toning in myself. It was only until Robbie said to me, well, why don't we just do it black and white? And I think I was a bit hesitant to do it black and white, partly because I just spent 16 years doing a black and white comic. And I know it's crazy to say it because obviously The Walking Dead was such a massive success, but I'm still of the opinion in general in the industry, coloured comics sell better than black and white ones. So I was kind of like, oh no, it has to be coloured. And it was only until Robbie kind of said that. So all power to him for, kind of convincing me, that I just thought, no, you're right. It does look better just black and white. So all these little things all built up to kind of, these minor delays all built up to basically the book kind of sitting there. From my point of view, finished. From Robbie's point of view, finished, but it probably took another year or so for it to finally be, complete. And in that time, I'd drawn Damn Them All and Altamont.
But it's really amazing that even after, like you said, the success of The Walking Dead, like publishers, because the fact that other publishers maybe didn't want to take a risk on the project illustrates the fact that, they are still like afraid of black and white comics, even though we have manga success and The Walking Dead for American comics that prove that black and white comics sell a lot also.
It's crazy. I know. I wish there was just a general perception of, whether something is good or not, regardless of whether it's coloured, whether it's, whether the lettering is on it or not, all this kind of stuff. But unfortunately, your average Joe, average person on the street will gravitate to something a lot more traditional. And that will mean colour. It's the same with the cinema, isn't it? So, when you look at the cinema, you make a movie in black and white, the chances of you being a box office success are very, very minimal. It is a shame, but I think I'm glad we stuck with our artistic guns, shall we say, and in the end, at the end of the day, you want your book to look the best it can be. And I think the best it could be was without colour.
And I was just thinking that like we got a trailer for a new Spider Noir series like a few days ago, and like they will release the show in two versions, in black and white and in full color, because they know that if they only stick to the black and white version, there will be less people watching it. So I really think like I was.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's a real shame that the black and white is regarded as a kind of
incomplete,
Well, I was going to say a kind of a style, and it shouldn't be regarded as a style. It should just be a thing. Yeah, and incomplete. It's like, oh, we've forgotten to put the color on. So, yeah, it should be accepted as any other part of a creative process, for sure.
And so you did Hérétique before Ultimate, where you did your own color. So I was wondering, if you look back and now that you can do your own colors, if you had to do Hérétique all over again, would you still do it in black and white, or would you try to add colors?
Oh, that's an interesting question. Yeah, I mean, without the actual knowledge, because we never said when we started work on it, oh, this will be a black and white book. It's not like The Walking Dead where, I came on board and it was a black and white book. So you drew it accordingly. That's, I don't know. That's a tricky one. If I was going to color it, I would definitely not put all the grey tone effects that I did into the book. That's for sure, because I'd do it in color anyway. It's a funny one to think of. I mean, I've still got all the files. Who knows? And they're all still, because it was all digital, so all the files are still in layers as well. So all the textual stuff I could literally just take out and just do a color version anyway, but I won't.
All right, and I was also wondering, since you can do both work in black and white and colors, how would you say that the main differences are in terms of lighting? Because I think it's one of the main things that when you're doing in black and white and you don't have color, it's really important that you master the lighting of the scenes. And I was wondering, so you've been experienced on The Walking Dead, and I was wondering also how you did it with Hérétique, because we're in a time period where there's no electricity, so you just have to do it by flame, basically. Yeah, how does that work for you in terms really of art?
Well, I was very conscious of the time period, as you said. So, I mean, stylistically anyway, the reason I chose kind of to draw it in that very textural pencil style was very much because you kind of, in your mind's eye, you don't see the past in color, I always think, because, most of the stuff, you imagine it, generally speaking, in black and white, I think. So that was one thing. It just felt right to do it how I did it. I mean, I've always obviously been known for along with a handful of other artists, known for my heavy blacks, my chiaroscuro, whatever you want to call it. This is kind of no different, but just with layers of texture, as I said, and obviously there's more, kind of grey toning going on, which probably, I was assuming the grey tone bits were going to be the bits a colorist would take and just turn it into a different color. So similar to how I colored Ultimate, actually, because it was all flat colored, and then I did a lettertone dot pattern, which was kind of being used as a kind of a a style thing to sum up the kind of the 60s and be a way of kind of creating more shadow, more shade as well. So it was a similar kind of technique I was doing with Altamont, with Hérétique. But no, I tended, even with like candlelight. I mean, candlelight's very interesting when you say, you can go for more dramatic lighting in a lot of ways. You imagine that sort of, I don't know, Stanley Kubrick candlelit atmosphere that he did back in the 70s, and you can definitely go for something a lot more dramatic. And rooms are full. Obviously in that time period, rooms would be full of candles, so you get multiple interesting kind of light sources and the way the light falls and things like that. So I was really trying to go for the atmosphere as per usual.
Mm-hmm. And I assume you might have done a lot of researches graphic researches in terms of architecture, costumes, and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, very, very much so. I mean, you can't fudge that sort of stuff. Originally Robbie and I were discussing perhaps even going to Antwerp to do research, but of course, this was probably the end of 2019, beginning of 2020, and we couldn't go anywhere that year, so we had to abandon that. So I had to rely on just good old research on the computer. But I was very mindful to try and get it as right as possible. I suppose the only saving grace of not being able to go to Antwerp, or at least save me money, was the fact that even if I went to Antwerp, I don't think there's that many, kind of 16th, 17th century buildings left standing. So if you couldn't find it in photographs online, I don't think it existed. So, I mean, it would have been nice to have gone there and got a bit of a sense of the atmosphere, etc., etc. But at the end of the day, just sort of doing your usual research online, was I think good enough. Obviously there are parts where I have taken slight artistic license, but try to keep to the general look. I've never set myself. I don't want to do a book that's 100% historically accurate. I've seen books like that, and to be honest, they tend to look kind of quite dull and very, if you're too obsessed with that, you want it to be dynamic and have a great story first and foremost.
I guess that might be the same thing like when you did the research for your main characters, Agrippa and Jean Vine, because my question was like, how do you transform real life people into comic book characters?
Well, the good thing about Ware and Agrippa is the fact that there's no photographs of them.
Not even portraits?
No, I don't think so. I think there might be the one or two of Agrippa. I can't remember now, but that they were done for books and stuff. So they were very, very basic drawings. And, you'd probably even question whether they were likenesses at all, or whether that artist was using, artistic license to depict them. So we kind of had a very clean slate when it came to actually creating the characters, which is, it's better for us. Because, especially with Agrippa, creating him as a character, almost giving them that sort of Basil Rathbone sort of Sherlock Holmes style face, I think suited the character. And if he ended up being a sort of 5'3" dumpy, balding individual, he just wouldn't have the same power and the same presence. And he needed that presence. So he needed to be tall. He needed to have that kind of kind of sharp cheekboned look that he does. It just felt right. Whether it's a cliche or not, I don't know. But for us, it just felt correct to do him like that.
Oh, it's just because like maybe you associate some trait of characters with also like just purely physical features. I don't know if I'm saying it correctly because I might be lacking vocabulary. Like I said, like someone who had like maybe a very big personality should also like be drawn as maybe a big character or a tall character.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose there are cliches that I have embraced because. It's your basic things like because Weyer is the apprentice of Agrippa, he's naturally smaller, and and Agrippa imposes over him and things like that. I mean, if you wanted to go against the grain, you'd almost do a reverse and do it the other way around. But of course. Yes, I suppose in that respect we did embrace for want of a better word, the cliche. But it kind of, it's good, illustration shorthand at the same time to have someone that is tall and imposing over someone that's shorter and, kind of slightly less imposing. As two characters. Sometimes you can't avoid the cliche.
How did you two work with Robbie in terms of the story pacing? Did you have a say in the pacing of the story compared to the scripts he gave you, or did you just draw literally what he said would be in the pages?
No, we tend to, similar to how Robert and I worked, we tend to respect each other's skill in what we do. I've never said that I can write, so why criticize, a writer? Why tell a writer to do his job when, I certainly couldn't do it. The script Robbie wrote was great. I wouldn't have it any other way. I can't recall a time where I kind of questioned anything in the text. There might have been, the only things I tend to criticize with any writer, to be honest, if I've noticed a kind of, an error in terms of, continuity or something like that, it's not very often I'll sort of go in and say, this is wrong. This character should do this. Rob, like I say, Rob has lived with these guys for, best part of, 30 years. So, I assume over that period of time, he's kind of collected enough, information on them to get into under their skin, so to speak. And I haven't lived with these characters. I lived with those characters for a couple of years, and that was it. But it makes for a much smoother working process, that's for sure. And Robbie never criticised the artwork either. So we're very good at
not fighting,
respecting each other's skill sets.
No, but maybe I was just wondering because he might have wrote a page that would be divided in 3 panels, and you would say like, no, I think it would work better in 4 panels, and maybe you would argue on that.
Yeah, I mean, perhaps occasionally I might have done that. Sometimes there's storytelling issues, but like I said to you right at the beginning, what we do share is a love of dense storytelling. We are more European in that respect than American. So I like the fact that, for instance, I don't think he rarely lingered for more than a couple of pages on almost every sequence. Because, you've got 120 pages to play with, which isn't nowhere near as long as your average novel, for instance. So, you kind of feel like you need to give the readers something worth reading. And there's a lot of American comics that if you read a 120-page collection of, well, that's 6-issue series, it really amounts to hardly anything because, they spend too much time, creating an atmosphere or having the characters, fighting for half the pages. So, we wanted to avoid that. We wanted to tell a really good story. And I'll look at Hérétique and I'd kind of go, yeah, this could easily be a movie now. It's long enough to be a 2-hour movie. And like I said, there's plenty of American stuff, which at the same length is probably long enough to be a half-hour TV show. So yeah, it's that's the love we both share. So it was very rare for me to add panels because Rob is certainly putting the work in. Perhaps there might have been a few times where I've actually taken out panels. I genuinely can't remember now, but I think it would have been that way around if that was the problem.
That's interesting that you seem to be against decompressed storytelling, but it's also because Hérétique was directly envisioned as a graphic novel and not as like a 6-issue miniseries. So it also had an impact on how you would tell the story, and you couldn't rely on cliffhangers and every 20 pages and stuff like that. Is it the way that you prefer working on stories today, like this kind of a graphic novel approach?
Oh, very much so. I've always been, since The Walking Dead, I've been very vocal about saying I'll never do an ongoing again. At the moment I'm working on a 6-issue miniseries, and that's kind of as sequential in terms of issues as I'm probably ever going to get. I like beginnings, middles, and ends now. The thing I'm working on, which is a book called Of This Earth, which is written by Chris Condon, and it will be published by Image in May, I believe. That is a book with a beginning, middle, and end. And that's it. I won't be returning to it, that's for sure. No, I just want to do stories that are finite now. That's where I want to be for the rest of my career.
And one of the things also is that Hérétique, you drew it digitally, 100% digitally. Was it the first time that you did a project without any amount of paper and pen?
No. I did the first book I did, the first full-length book I did digitally was Vampire State Building for Soleil. That was the first digital book. I obviously done a few covers, a few sort of short stories, things like that prior to doing that for Soleil, because what you don't want to do when you start drawing digitally is dive immediately into a long-term project like that. So I kind of cut my teeth on that. Then the final issue of The Walking Dead, which I returned to do the whole thing again, because obviously Stefano Gaudiano was inking me on the previous 60 plus issues. Even though that was inked, still pen and paper, I did a lot of kind of digital manipulation with it. So there's a bit of digital there, but then, straight after that, Hérétique. And it was a bit of a baptism of fire because I was, like I say, playing not with the obvious tools either. I wasn't playing with just good old ink pens with a nice, kind of clean line. So it was an interesting experiment to do something so textural but digitally. But I go in between now. Altamont was drawn for real, inverted commas, like pen and paper, but then obviously it was colored digitally. Another project that's going to be coming out by the end of the year called The Mountains Belong to Us was drawn physically again. It's actually going to be another book with I say another one. It's obviously different because it's for real as opposed to Hérétique. Hérétique was obviously kind of imitating pencils. This one is really with pencils, and that's it though. No other. It is black and white. It is what it is, and I knew this was going to be black and white right from the beginning. So that's my last book that I've done. Inverted commas, for real. Of This Earth is digital, and I think the project I'm doing after that will be digital as well. And I've got my fingers crossed I'll have the time also to colour that one, which is something I'd really like to do again. I just want to I'm a control freak. I just want to, I just want to have it all. I just want to be able to do it all as much as I really like the colorists who have worked on the books that I've worked on. No one colours my work better than myself. And I've said that about inking. I've said that about colouring. And that's no disrespect to the colorists or Stefano. He's the only inker I've ever had. It's just they do it differently to I do it, which is fine, but it's not me. So I kind of, even though it takes up more time and I'd like to get on to the next project, at the same time, you do want that total control.
I was not implying that digital comics are not real comics. Let's just say it, and not only to you and to all the people that are listening, because otherwise I would make enemies of myself. But I was wondering, since you've tried both, what are the pros and the cons of digital drawings, as far as you are concerned?
I mean, the only con, to be honest, I am more digital now than I am, real, for want of a better word, is you don't get a sense of that pen on the paper. It's as simple as that. There is a kind of a nice feeling when that, especially when you're inking, when that sort of nib or brush or whatever hits that paper, and you feel the tooth of the paper, and there's just suddenly a different technique you apply straight away to something like that. With no matter how good the technology is, you're still drawing with this digital pen on a bit of glass. It's as simple as that. And I've got a Cintiq just right next to me here, and the screen has a nice tooth to it. Even it's not 100%, just drawing on this horrible glossy surface. But still, there's no give to it. There's no, all the stuff you'd associate with, drawing on paper. Having said that, the possibilities with digital art are infinitely more endless. There's stuff I've been able to do when I've been doing digital that I'd never be able to do on just a black and white pen and paper or whatever, and you can get more experimental because you can try things out, and full well you can just delete it if it doesn't work and it hasn't harmed the artwork underneath, and just all these things like that. So this is why I tend to favor digital now. It doesn't make me faster. People always say, well, does it make you faster? It doesn't make me faster, because I'm probably trying out more things all the time. So it obviously slows me down because I'm doing that. But I like, apart from that feel, everything else about digital, I think is a bigger positive, more than the negative.
And I was wondering, because in Hérétique we can see some very detailed cathedrals and buildings like that. And I was wondering if maybe you used photographs or something like that to help you have the structure, or if it was just you drew them from nothing.
I mean, they were obviously, and originally, I think as we said before, they were from reference material from photographs. But again, with digital, it's a lot easier to draw from photographs, because basically, I know it sounds like cheating now, but it isn't, honestly. I will download an image, obviously just cut and paste it onto the page I'm drawing, and copy the artwork from something like that. Generally, that's what I'll tend to do. I mean, obviously, if I can't get the right angle, I'll obviously have to transpose it from looking at another screen. But more often than not, I will try and make it work. One good thing I had, obviously not with Hérétique, but I had a guy I know for Altamont, because I'm not very technical myself with this, but he's really good with Google SketchUp, and he designed for me the VW van that the characters drive around in. So obviously I could take that, twist it around, turn it, any angle, take the roof off, zoom in. So I got him to design the interior as well. So zoom in. And things like that, so I could just have a proper set. And I knew that the characters were going to be in this thing for, best part of half a book. So, I kind of needed that accuracy that just looking at photographs, I wouldn't be able to get. So, occasionally I'll ask this guy I know his name's Kays Kadir, to design me something if I know it's going to be in the book for a lot of time. It's worth paying him to do that.
Which is a good reminder that comic books is a collaborative process also. So it's cool to ask people to do stuff for you. But if we just speak about digital art, let's talk also about the big bad wolf here, which is AI. Are you afraid of AI as an artist? It's a question maybe you've been asked a lot. I don't know, but there's a tendency, the growing tendency to use AI in all kinds of artistic fields. But it seems to me that comics might be a little bit more preserved, mainly because of the community. And by community, I'm speaking the readers, but also the other artists that are keen on spotting who is using AI and who's really cheating. Because that's really cheating. Yeah, what's your stance on AI?
Obviously, I would feel complete fraud if I used AI myself. Personally, I've not even touched it. I don't have ChatGPT or anything like that. I've never ever even bothered with it, to be honest. I find it kind of singularly, perhaps it's my age. I'll be 60 this year, so it's just something I can't really get my head around. I don't know. But personally for me, it's not something I will choose to use. I think I'm glad that people like the idea of still following their favorite artist as opposed to just having an image and that'll do, so to speak. I think you're right. The comics industry is a bit more protective of that. They do feel it's still an industry that is still, almost decades ago, it could have just been a lot more mechanical, the process of writing and drawing a comic book. It would look awful, but, and I think readers, don't want that. They like the fact that, I like, this artist, I like this writer, I like, and they'll follow them. And if it suddenly all becomes homogenized, that all that is lost. Now, whether the next generation have the same attitude, I don't know. That's an issue, I think. We're talking about a generation at the moment who don't want it. So, I don't know what'll happen after that. But my other approach also, it sounds a bit disingenuous, but I think I'm too old to care as well. I think I'll be long gone by the time it becomes a proper issue, you know.
You're not that old.
You can still live on quite a few decades if you're lucky.
Yeah, yes. But by that time, I won't be drawing as much, so it'll be fine.
Yeah. Maybe you'll have something else to do also. Maybe you want to rest also, because you can have that.
You can have also a little rest.
I assure you from now, I will always be drawing, because I am at my most relaxed when I am drawing. So why would I stop?
I noticed that you mentioned already that you had like several projects. So one is going to be announced really soon, because if it's out in May, we will have the solicitations like in a few weeks. But you're also like planning, you also have other projects planned. And I also noticed that between two graphic novels, you did short stories for EC Comics, for Epitaph from the Abyss, and also even for DC for their Brave and the Bold anthology. So like, I was just wondering in a general way, how do you choose the subjects you work on?
Well, the big ones, the main ones, the kind of the books and the mini series and things. I choose those carefully, because I don't want to spend a year, 2 years, something like that, working on something that's
you don't like.
Well, not I don't like, but something that's just doesn't mean much to me. I get very aware. Again, I'll refer to my age, but at my age, I get very aware of the word legacy. And I do want to have leave a legacy, and I don't want to leave a legacy that was just, kind of, oh, he worked on this mini series about, this I don't know, superhero which fights X, and that's it. I'm not interested in that. So every project has to have a kind of a meaning for me. Something, it has to be about something. It's as simple as that. And hopefully something that connects with me. Short stories, that's a different thing, because that's more of just a bit of fun. The reason I did the EC stuff, I was, and this is no insult to the Oni folks, but I was filling time waiting for the next project. I knew I was doing it, but it was, for various reasons, it was delayed. So I knew the door was always open over there. So I just said, I'm available for a couple of short stories, if you like. And actually, what I like about that is I can color those, and that gives me that sort of itches, scratches that itch of coloring stuff. If I haven't got time to do a full length thing, at least I've done 8 pages or something like that. And it's same with the Batman black and white. I'll never do a massive Batman series because, well, the other thing is I don't want to ever not draw stuff I don't own anymore. So
even if they told you like you can do anything that you want with those characters.
Well, I think the only reason I might ever consider something like that is if literally there was nothing else on the horizon. I'd always choose something that I felt a connection to, and I owned over, drawing Batman, Spider-Man, whatever. Even if they offered me a king's ransom, sort of page rate, I'm not interested. I don't want to, sorry to say it. I just don't want to, waste my time personally drawing something like that just doesn't amount to anything. I love a lot of those characters. I mean, lots of people tell me, and I agree because I think I would. I'd be a perfect artist for something like Daredevil. And a tiny, tiny bit of me thinks, it'd be really cool to draw some Daredevil. But at the same time, I'm thinking I probably won't, because I don't want to spend a year, 2 years, however long it is, doing that, and it just gets lost in the Marvel kind of vaults and they own it, and you might get a bit of royalties from it here and there, but that's it. It's just you just added to a list of loads and loads of other artists and writers who worked on that character. And I'm kind of laser focused the opposite direction now.
All right. And then last question. You mentioned that you were not a writer before, but would you ever want to write also a story? Would you try? Because if you only have a few years of work, isn't it something that you should try?
I'm too busy drawing. No, I've never considered it. I can't write. It's as simple as that. I'll leave that to the people that can. I mean, there's the reason White Death and Altamont are kind of slightly more special to me is because those are the only two books that I started in terms of I came up with the very, very basic idea of what I wanted to do with those books. So it was me asking a writer to work on something.
You pitched them?
I pitched them a very, very rough concept. Yeah. So, and then they took it and ran with it. It's as simple as that. So, that's why they hold a slightly more special place in my heart than everything else sort of creator-owned I've done. But apart from that, everything else has been pitched to me. And then, I've obviously got the nice choice of picking and choosing, the one I really want to do. Hopefully I'd like to do them all, but then it's juggling that, juggling the thing that I can do them all. But, I mean, certain writers are quite happy to wait as well, which is brilliant. So then I can say, well, I'll do that in a couple of years after I finish this, but yeah. No, you won't see written and drawn by Charlie Adlard anytime soon, that's for sure.
It's okay. It's okay. It's also like wise to know also what your strengths are, and if you're not fit to do something else, like it's very good also to not try to do something that that you won't be able to do as good as others would do.
Exactly. So I'll leave that to the experts.
All right. Thank you so much for your time, Charlie. It was really nice to have this chat with you. I can't wait for the new projects that we are going to have in this year. And I hope we meet face to face the next time you come to France.
Well, thank you. I'm sure it'll be very soon when I get back to France. Just let me have a rest now after this week.
Of course. Thank you, Charlie.
Cheers. Thank you.